If you've ever tried selling your game on platforms like Steam, for example, you'll have noticed that actually getting someone to pay money for your game can be kind of hard at the end of the day. And there's one simple solution to getting more players, and that is making your game free to play. Sounds easy, right? Except there are a few problems, and in this video I want to talk a bit more about some of the considerations that you should keep in mind when making free-to-play games. Because I think on the one hand, yes, it is a cheat code to getting more players, but on the other hand, you need to understand that, hey, more players does not equal more money. If all you care is player count, then yeah, sure, definitely go with for free-to-play, but I think there are some more considerations, even if you are removing the price of your game, to keep in mind to make sure that you can get the most out of going free-to-play. Now, one heads up here, I'll be talking about free-to-play games focused on desktop, so it doesn't have to be Steam exactly, but still like you play it on a computer. Mobile has a giant free-to-play market and a whole ecosystem surrounding that. I myself have no clue how mobile free-to-play works, and also it's not the main platform of our audience, so I'm not going to be covering that. Some of these things will probably also carry over, but for now, I'm going to be talking purely about PC games and making those free to play. And as I said, going for a free to play genre is going to immediately make your marketing easier, because you're getting rid of that hurdle where someone, if they're not like 100% convinced that like, hey, I want this game and I'm going to take my credit card and pay money for it, if they're not that convinced, well, you'll lose out on the sale. Maybe you'll still get a wish list, but it's hard to say if that will ever convert. And things like demos can help with like giving more of that confidence to potential future players of, hey, I want to pay money for this, but at the end of the day, if they don't have to pay money, it's always going to be better. And the question that you get then often is, we talk about this mainly with like premium games, the ones that you have to pay for, is like, what are the best genres? Like for example, 4X games, they earn the most and things like that. And free to play kind of has a different genre meta. Of course, you can take pretty much any genre and then slap free to play on it and you'll get more downloads. But I think certain genres do make more sense, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to be making boatloads of money, we'll talk about monetization later on in the video as well, it doesn't always make sense to spend like 5 years working on a super in-depth 4X game, only for you to not really make any money from it, maybe like $100 and like in-app purchase or whatever. I think if you do want to go for that free-to-play approach, some of the best genres that I would personally look at is just good genres for indies. Things like, for example, roguelites, or small city builder like management games, or just smaller games in general in nearly any genre, where you're like, hey, this is like half an hour of like a game experience, I cannot charge money for this in good faith, just go for that. There is the opposite side though, where certain genres almost need to have free to play, so think about things like MOBAs or Battle Royale games. Now, I don't want you to make those styles of games, so I would definitely not recommend doing that. The reason that a lot of MOBAs and Battle Royales and like also shooter games like Warzone and things like that are free to play is so they can get that bigger user base, which is needed to keep the game alive. Otherwise, you get something like Concord, where hey, you need a big user base and you also needed to pay quite a high amount of money to even play the game in the first place. That's not going to happen. But this is the free-to-play market for bigger game studios. They're focusing on, okay, the actual in-app purchases, they do a lot more monetization and things like that. To make it sustainable, you can probably not do that as easily, because you need to pay for server infrastructure and all of the networking and things like that, and you will not get money from day one. So I wouldn't suggest going that route. So just basically, you can make any genre that you want at the end of the day, and you will probably get already more visibility just from the fact that it's free to play. And it brings us to the reason why I actually originally made this video, because it was a viewer and he was like, hey, I want to get started with game development. Should I make my first few games, like just make them completely for free and put them on Steam just to get a name out there for myself as a developer? And I have like multiple thoughts and answers about this. I think the idea of, hey, accept that, hey, the first few games I'm gonna make, they're not gonna be the best, so I'm just gonna make them free to play and people can complain if they want, but then I can build up like more of a audience who plays all of my games and things like that, so that once I am better and I make that more premium game, I'll have more marketing potential, basically, because more people already know of me as the developer. I think that is a decent idea. The problem is that you shouldn't be trying to make money from those first games at all. I think one of my personal favorite examples of this style of developer, where they're basically just like, I don't care about the money, I just want the experience and I just want people to play my game and learn from that, is a game like Helltaker, where the creator was just like, I need more office lady demon girls in my life, so let me make that game. And then he created Helltaker. Of course, he added a donation pack as well, where you could like basically get an art book and like a pancake recipe and like support the developer for I think $10. But that is not really something you can rely on too much. Once again, I'll talk about monetization later. But I think that is a good approach if you just want to get started with game development. Now, we do have to be honest, like you're going to be spending at least $100 on the Steam credit. If you want to do this correct, you'll also need to get capsule art commissioned, which is another few $100 usually. And then of course you have to go through all of the marketing and all of that, like gathering the wishlist and things like that. The free-to-play only helps once the game is out already, basically. Before the game is out, well, you still have to collect wishlists, you still have to do all of the regular stuff. It's not the easiest, it's not going to be profitable. You really need to do it just for the love of the game, basically. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but it's like not everyone is gonna spend hundreds of dollars without any hope of making it back ever, basically. As for the part of building up your brand so they can buy your later games, this is a bit of a weird one. My basic feeling is that branding as a studio, if you stick to the Steam platform itself, doesn't matter. If you have a secondary platform like a Discord server or like a YouTube channel or whatever, where you also talk about the games you make, then I think you can build an audience. But making just like certain games, putting them on Steam free to play, and then let's say you make 3 games all free to play, put them on Steam, you've got hundreds of thousands of players playing it, whatever, and then you make a paid game, I think organically there won't be much conversion from that. I think there's much more success by having that core audience, keeping them up to date with either something like a Discord server or having a YouTube channel where you do devlogs or whatever. This is something that could work. Generally, I'm not a fan of devlogs, but if you already have an audience from the game, basically, because you go for free to play, funnel them over to your YouTube, build that up, and then use that to then like kind of feed the circle of, hey, I have new free to play game, like more players from that game go back to your YouTube channel, and it like does a little circle up until you've got enough of an audience that is like loyal to your studio that you can be like, hey, now I have a paid game, it's $10 or whatever. You'll get some conversion more. But I think if you're just relying on the like more from this developer tab on Steam, you're not going to get a lot. There used to be a time where you could also put like your own other games on Steam as well and like link to them. However, like a few weeks before this video was recorded, Steam basically killed all of that and you're not allowed to link to other games or your own games anymore, and you have to link more into their regular format. It is harder to do that conversion. So I think it's more of a, hey, try to capture the audience through the free to play tag and then funnel them to another platform and then send them back to Steam the next time you have a game. And I think something here, because I am like, hey, it's kind of expensive to get that Steam credit, to get that art commission and whatever. If you are someone who's just looking to, hey, I want to ship my games and I want to make sure more people play it, of course you can put it on itch.io, that's a common one, but also platforms like Crazy Games, we made a video about them, or Poki as like an alternative to it, could be an idea as well, where you will get an audience basically for your game because it's free to play. They have some own custom like small monetization tools built in as well. But that way you have less upfront investment if you're like a student and you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars on getting multiple Steam credits. That's an approach. And it is a very easy platform to still learn about, hey, what are certain parts of game design, game mechanics, and maybe building a community once again that you can learn that way already. Of course, there will be more like learning experience if you go and publish directly onto Steam, because then you have those things like wishlists to worry about, you're getting more acquainted with the Steamworks dashboard and all of that, but it's not a hard requirement in my opinion. And then speaking of that learning with things like wishlists and whatever, this was another question that I once got is, should you add demos for your free-to-play games? Is it worth making demos? Because at the end of the day, like a demo and a free-to-play game, both of them are free at the end of the day. One is just more limited, because this allows you to also do things like joining Steam Next Fest if you have a demo before the games comes out. And my general advice is here, yes, have a demo. If you can and your like development cycle allows it, like if you're not making a 1-month game, then always make demos and join the Steam Next Fest. Right now, Steam Next Fest is going through some changes, so I have no idea how this new algorithm-based approach of Steam Next Fest is going to be. But at the end of the day, Steam Next Fest is always going to be a win because you'll get some wishlists from it. You'll get a few hundred in worst case. Best case, you can get like bigger from it. Remember that with Steam Next Fest, you're competing with other paid games, not just the free-to-play games. So your quality bar has to be a little bit higher versus, oh, you're just competing with other free-to-play games, basically. But have the demo, have that as early as you can, of course, keep it updated. It is going to be a part of your marketing strategy. You can send it to influencers and everything like that. So I think it's a good idea, but once you do release the game, I would take off the demo basically. There's not much value in having both a demo and a free-to-play game. Just get the free-to-play game, like the full build basically. And that brings us to the second big half of this video, and that is, how do you monetize free-to-play games? Because sure, you can make them, and if you want to do it just for the love of the game and a hobby, that's fine. Then you can basically drop out of this video now, but chances are, hey, you want to maybe try and recoup something, like how much you spent on it. And the first, like, easiest thing you can do is adding some Steam DLC basically, which is either just a straight up donation pack where it's like, hey, you can give me $1 or $5 or $10 and you just buy it and you don't get anything extra in the game, but it's just a little extra support. This is the easiest, but also something that I wouldn't expect much to come from. We're talking about like, maybe you'll get enough money to buy like 1 or 2 coffees every month, because there's just a very low conversion of people who play free-to-play games to actually supporting your game. Something to keep in mind as well here is audience differences. That's actually something I didn't cover before that I should have. People who focus on like the free-to-play aspect often are a different style of audience than people who buy premium games on platforms like Steam, for example. Because free-to-play, it's often a younger audience that doesn't have as much purchasing power and all of that. They thrive on free-to-play games. They just eat whatever there is, and there's a lot more people who have that low amount of purchasing power but want to play games versus people who can actually pay money and want to, and who will also play those free-to-play games. Making those donation packs, there's no reason not to do it at the end of the day. So I would do it, but I wouldn't bank on it making a lot of money. What you can do instead is like a little step in between is not have a purely donation pack and you get nothing else really, but it's something like, hey, you get extra content. So an idea you see here often is, for example, I'm making a free-to-play puzzle game. And the first 30 levels are completely free-to-play, and then you can buy another 90 levels or whatever by spending €4.99 or whatever. Basically, you're hiding your demo as just a free-to-play game. This is something that you do see done sometimes if it's like a single player experience that you can very easily be like, hey, you liked it so far, now you can buy more. It's something that heavily depends on the style and the genre of game you're going to make, of course, but it's something you can look into. Another example of this could be things like, hey, you can get some like special in-game skins or whatever that is like kind of a supporter pack, and also kind of a like you get more cosmetics. That is another approach you could go for. Like, these are things that probably not that many people will buy. Keep that in mind. But it's also very easy at the end of the day to implement. Steam's DLC tools are pretty easy. We've worked a little bit with them ourselves. We never published the DLC, but we went through the steps to look into how does this work. So I would generally say go for it. There's not much you can lose. Like, I don't think anyone will kill you for having a donation DLC on a free-to-play game if the free-to-play game is good. Another way you can monetize is doing things like in-app purchases, but that is something that is already a bit more meh, because first of all, this is something that works more in that genre of like free-to-play multiplayer games where you can buy more lives, you can buy special weapons. You see it a lot with like free-to-play shooters, and you can buy like gun upgrades, or you can buy like points to skip certain parts. It's not the easiest to do, and I would generally stay away from it. A similar thing that you can just not do on Steam plainly is things like advertisements. If you use something like Crazy Games or Poké, you can very easily build in advertisements and you'll earn something. Now, ads, once again, very low earning. This doesn't translate 100%, but for example, every 1,000 views on our YouTube, which is 1,000 eyeballs, we get about $2 in AdSense, which isn't that much at the end of the day. If you look at how many views basically you need to get to have a livable wage. It's similar with ads inserted into video games. Like, it doesn't earn you a lot, but hey, it's something, and like every little bit counts. If that's the idea, if you're making those free-to-play games, you're usually not going into this with the idea of fully monetizing everything. And then one final thing that you can try, I have limited experience with it, but it could be something I just want to prime you on, is using some of the tools that Steam gives you, like for example, the Workshop. Now, Steam Workshop and trading card support only works if you've already released a first game. You need to hit like a certain threshold. I'm not really sure what it is, but you need to hit it in order to be eligible for Workshop support and for marketplace support. It's how a game like Banana, for example, makes a lot of money, even though it's free to play, because you get those trading cards and you can sell them on the marketplace, and the developer gets a percentage of every transaction done through the Steam marketplace. Once again, here, you need to get a very big scale of users, and it's something that most likely doesn't work in every genre, but it's something that you can think about, like, hey, is there something how I can integrate marketplace support or trading cards in my own game? So take a look at that. This was a bit of a first primer on free-to-play games. I think generally they're more risky than they are worth it. I'll link a video down below as well that talks a bit more about the earnings of a game that's got hundreds of thousands of downloads but actually barely made any money, where you would probably earn a lot more just by making a premium game. And sure, you wouldn't have as much of a user base reach, but because they would actually give you money for it and not like just drive up costs for you, give you more like things that you need to worry about how to support them, like bugs and whatever, it would be more worth it. So go and give that a watch. Apart from that, if you're new here, we're game developers and we make videos about the things that I learn making my own games and being involved in the game dev world. So if that's something you're interested in, head down below and subscribe, because we upload 2 videos every week talking about the things that I've learned. So I think there's going to be something that you'll like in here. Anyways, that's all really to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!